Hey everyone, this is Kate. And I'm Dan. Today we're gearing up to break trail through deep snow to hunt spruce grouse in Alaska. Now, we've never hunted for spruce grouse before, and we've never hunted in the winter. In fact, we've not had any luck hunting anything at all. But our hopes were high for having our first successful hunt after making plans with our more experienced hunting friends. We've had a slow start to winter this year on the Kenai Peninsula, but this past week, the snow has really come down. We've made plans to head an hour outside of town to the Resurrection Trail, if we can get there. And if we do, this hunt will require a few new items to go along with our usual hunting kit, namely a shotgun and snowshoes to get up the trail. After we finished packing the van, we braved the rough winter roads. We swung into Three Bears to grab some breakfast essentials and waited for our friends to arrive.
Breakfast of champions.
While we're waiting, I want to take a moment to emphasize the importance of keeping up with gear maintenance so that everything is functioning correctly when you're ready to hit the trail. It's wise to check seasonal gear, such as snowshoes, for example, at the beginning and end of the season, and use best practices as recommended by the manufacturer to store that gear in a way that will maintain its longevity.
So why are you telling us this?
Yeah, stay tuned for that answer.
Once our friends arrived, we set our sights on the trailhead a few miles further down the road.
Hello, you guys ready to go? All right, we'll follow you. Alrighty.
And we were all geared up to walk you through the ins and outs of learning about spruce grouse hunting, the excitement, the strategy, shooting a helpless bird. But sometimes the trail you set out to walk isn't the one you end up on, or in this case, the one you set out to snowshoe on. We arrived safely at the freshly plowed parking lot for the Resurrection Trail, and it was clear that we were the first ones here since it had snowed, so we'd be breaking trail. Luckily, we were perfectly equipped for this, with warm layers, poles, and snowshoes with not a thing to worry about. We had total confidence, supported by blind faith, that our gear was ready for any adventure.
What happened with your snowshoes?
Slight snowshoe malfunction. All of the straps have decided they were done and they're breaking. So I have one good one on this side and a bungee cord on this side. So
All right, Alaska engineering.
totally, I'm sure, not be an issue at all.
Yep. All right, let's go.
Let's go.
Now, had I taken my own advice about gear maintenance, I would have checked the condition of my snowshoes well before any snow had fallen, giving me the time to make any fixes I'd need. Instead,
Down to one snowshoe.
How necessary are they really?
The pleasure of trying to do this for me.
Yeah, because we'll have to have your foot in there, huh?
Tape stick.
That's probably good enough for that. Okay, are you helping or hurting? Yes. Cinch this up tight around there.
That's too wet. Let's see how it goes for a little bit.
It's gonna come off. It needs to be warm enough to stick to it.
Get down there and breathe on it for a little.
Some hot lung air.
just to drive the point home, it was very easy to replace these straps. In fact, it only took me about 5 minutes, which is way less time than it took us to jerry-rig these snowshoes on the trail. I've had these snowshoes for about 10 years now, and I really like them. But it was foolish of me to assume they would work flawlessly forever. I was thrilled when I found that replacement parts were available, and I ordered extras just to have around. Comment below if you'd like to see a semi-thorough, long-term review of the MSR Lightning Ascent Snowshoe.
With the snowshoes seemingly fixed, we made our way up the trail hoping to flush out some grouse. Mitch shared with us what signs to look for, and we scoured the trail for any clues. And while we saw plenty of tracks, mostly rabbit, and what we think were even a few lynx prints, not once did we see any sign of spruce grouse. Though we did find some berries. Berries are plentiful in Alaska, and while many are edible and downright delicious,
I'll try them.
we haven't quite had enough experience to be able to identify any given berry while out on the trail.
Frozen. That's cool.
But these seem safe enough, and Mitch recommended them.
There he goes.
They're so good. You haven't even eaten them yet? Oh, there it is. Taste the deliciousness.
Yeah, you can see why it needs a lot of sugar in the jam.
Whoa. Wow.
After we recovered from our snack, we pressed further back into the wilderness, ducking trees and following each bend of the trail, hoping that around the next corner we'd see our prize. But ultimately, we had no luck finding grouse. The daylight was quickly fading from the low winter sun, and we decided to head back to the cars, giving ourselves one last pass along the trail to scare up any grouse. I suppose the biggest lesson we've learned from hunting is that even if you do everything to set yourself up for success, which we didn't, it's all about timing, patience, and luck. But as far as unsuccessful days go, we picked a lovely one to have. It never feels bad to have taken a walk in the woods. Despite our lack of successful hunting and a small snowshoe malfunction, we had fun out there. This was a great first effort at hunting grouse, and we'll definitely take lessons from this trip, not the least of which is to double check all our gear before we head out. We were fortunate that with a bit of help from our friends, we managed the situation. But that snowshoe incident could have ended up far worse. I had been lucky that the straps failed almost immediately. If that had happened miles into the hike without duct tape and bungee cords available, the day probably would have turned out very differently. But lesson learned.
All right, well, so the snowshoes made it the whole way, which is good. We got some duct tape on this one and a bungee cord on this one. So now the trick is to get it off safely. We'll see if I can.
May the odds be ever in your favor.
Thank you. Sued for trademark infringement. All these straps that go across the boot.
They all broke.
Yeah, it was like they were fine last year and now this year they're done. So
I think the biggest thing to take away from this is to always have friends around. As much as we love the peace and solitude that Alaska provides, having friends always makes things more fun, safer, and those shared experiences make for the best memories. And speaking of shared experiences, we celebrated our day with food and beer at one of the area's newest breweries, and started making plans for our next adventure. We had a lot of fun sharing this video with you, and we'd love to hear your stories about your hunts, especially the ones that maybe didn't go to plan. Comment below with any fun stories or lessons learned you have from your hunting trips. As we were wrapping up our day, Alaska had one last gift for us and rewarded our day of hard work with a gorgeous winter sunset.